Welcome to Think About It with your host, Jaden Miller.
Good day, everyone. This is a fascinatingly beautiful day in Phoenix, Arizona. I want to welcome you to Think About It with Jaden Miller. This is my podcast. I appreciate you guys joining me on this beautiful Sunday. Remember, please like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast channel. Also, I have a YouTube channel, so please like, share, and subscribe. Follow, comment. As it relates to the podcast, I'm on all of the podcast platforms, so feel free to listen to me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Amazon, Google Podcasts, Castbox, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and more. So again, I want to thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Sunday in January. I want to talk today about the unfortunate death of Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier was a great actor, and I just have so many fond memories of his acting. And from many of the articles that I've read about Sidney, he was a very talented individual, a very generous individual, and had a really kind heart about himself. And so I want to talk today about Sidney Poitier. I want to talk about his films, especially some of the films that are the most memorable for me. And there are several. But let's talk a little bit quickly about his background. Sidney was born on February 20th of 1927 in Miami, Florida. He was the youngest of 7 children. His parents, Evelyn and Reginald, were farmers in the Bahamas. Yes, he grew up in the Bahamas. And his parents owned a farm on Cat Island, which they would often travel from to Miami to sell tomatoes and other produce. Poitier was born unexpectedly in Miami 2 months premature. While his parents were visiting. He remained in Miami for 3 months before he became healthy enough to come back with his parents to the Bahamas, where he was raised. And, you know, I've read several articles that indicate that he was so tiny when he was born that his father could hold him in his hand. That is extremely tiny. When Sidney Poitier was 15 years old, he was sent to Miami to live with his brother. Now, you know, they wanted him to experience the United States, and there weren't very many opportunities in the Bahamas for him. So he went to live with his brother in Miami, and then shortly after he moved to New York City. He really didn't care about Miami very much. I would have liked it for the warm weather, but hey, he was from the Bahamas. He was used to warm weather. So at 16, he decided to move to New York City, which was probably a very good move for him. He worked as a waiter, and then he enlisted in the Army. All right. Now, after the Army, that's when he found his niche in the theater. Okay, that acting was a thing that he wanted to do. So he auditioned for a role with the American Negro Theater, and then he took on this lead in Broadway's Lysistrata before his breakout role as Gregory Miller in the 1955 movie Blackboard Jungle. All right. Sidney Poitier is survived by his wife, Joanna Shimkus, who he was with for over 50 years. He married her in 1976. They met on the set of a movie they were both doing in 1969 called The Lost Man, in which they played love interest, which was still sort of taboo back in 1969. However, the Loving versus Virginia decision, which allowed interracial marriage in the United States, came out. So, you know, Joanna Shimkus was white. That was his second wife. All right. And as I mentioned, they met on the set of The Lost Man in 1969. All right. Well, they met in 1969, but married in 1976. They had 2 children together, Anika and Sidney Tamila. All right. And as mentioned, they were married up until his death on January 6th, 2022. All right. Sidney Poitier died at the age of 94. All right. His second wife, Joanna Shimkus, described him as the most wonderful, generous, kind, honest man with the most integrity that she had ever known in her entire life. Well, as I mentioned, Joanna Shimkus was his second wife. Who was his first wife? Well, his first wife was named Juanita Hardy. All right. Juanita Hardy was African American. All right. She was a model. They had 4 children together and raised them primarily in Stuyvesant, New York, and then moving to Mount Vernon in Westchester County. And his daughter, Sidney Poitier, had a daughter with his first wife, Juanita Hardy, and she died unexpectedly in May of 2018. And from my reading and understanding about that really, really hurt Sidney Poitier very much. She was the youngest of his 4 daughters with Juanita Hardy. And like any death, when a child precedes a parent, it's always very, very difficult. Poitier and Hardy were married for 15 years until their divorce in 1965. Now, Sidney Poitier was also a human being. And being human, we do human things, all right? It is reported that for 9 years, Sidney Poitier had an affair with actress Diahann Carroll while he was still married to Juanita Hardy. And their affair was so intense that Poitier wanted Carroll to divorce her husband and marry him. And they had also, according to reports, agreed to do so. Sidney Poitier met Diahann Carroll in 1959, and that's when their affair began, when they were in the movie Porgy and Bess. All right, so Carroll did divorce her husband, Monty K, and was engaged in a relationship with Sidney Poitier for, like I mentioned, 9 years. He also bought a house for her that she could live in so that she could be close to him, even though he was still married to his first wife, Juanita Hardy. Well, after she divorced her husband, Sidney Poitier started to have second doubts about their relationship and decided that he would not leave his wife. And so that house that he bought for her, he changed the locks and had her to write him a check to offset the purchase and the decorating cost of the house. Diahann Carroll did so. They had a contentious relationship as they split. And then, of course, eventually, Sidney Poitier married again after Juanita Hardy's, his divorce with Juanita Hardy. And Diahann Carroll moved on as well. And so, again, I just mentioned that just to remind people that, as human beings, we do human things. And Sidney Poitier is certainly a great man, notwithstanding, that he had, one affair in his life. All right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about his movies, all right, which is what I really, really want to get into. Sidney Poitier was just a phenomenal actor, all right? And I would like to say that I've watched a great number of his movies and have been so entertained by his diversity and his versatility. And I mean, he just always brings this attitude to the movies, this professionalism to his movies. And that's why I know, or why I understand why Denzel Washington gives him so much praise, and that he paved the way, okay, for so many other African American actors. And so that's why, I really wanted to pay homage to Sidney Poitier. I mean, like I said, it's just like, those actors or those entertainers or whomever, stars that you grow up knowing, and then they pass away. It's like a member of your family, maybe an extended member of your family has also passed away as well. And so, it tugs at the heart. And I know so many people have great movies of him, great memories of him, I'm sorry. So I'm going to talk about these, but let me do this first. I'll be right back after a word from one of my fellow podcasters. All right, welcome back to the podcast. This again is Jaden Miller, and this is Think About It with Jaden Miller. Just want to give a shout out to Fire Breathing Kittens. That's one of the podcasts that I listen to. It is a one-shot D&D podcast. Every episode is a complete story with a beginning and an end. You can listen in any order. You can join us as they solve mysteries, join them as they solve mysteries, attempt comedic banter, and enjoy friendship. All right, their cast rotates. Go ahead and check them out. Fire Breathing Kittens on your favorite podcast platform. All right, so we were talking about Sidney Poitier and some of my favorite movies with him. You know, it would be very hard to rank, my favorite movies with Sidney Poitier, but I'll just talk about some of the ones that are just my favorite and just give you some of my memories. Here let me first talk about They Call Me Mr. Tibbs. I'm gonna do that one. So that movie is about a police lieutenant from San Francisco, and what he does is they call him Mr. Tibbs. In the movie, Sidney Poitier is trying to solve the murder, of a prostitute. All right. So he is, while trying to do that, he's battling domestic woes, including a frustrated wife and a rebellious adolescent son. He's the person that's accused of murdering the prostitute is a liberal street preacher and political candidate. And so, this is just really, really a great police movie, because during the time when this movie came out, you didn't see very many African-American actors acting in the role of law enforcement, especially as a police lieutenant. All right. They Call Me Mr. Tibbs came out in 1970. Really, really great movie. But let me talk about the movie that came out that also starred him, as a law enforcement officer, but it came out 3 years before. It was called In the Heat of the Night. All right. In the Heat of the Night. So in this movie, Sidney Poitier is a black Philadelphia police detective. All right. Now, he's suspected of a local murder while passing through a Mississippi town. I think it was Sparta. All right. And after being cleared, he is reluctantly asked by the police chief, who happens to be Rod Steiger, to help him investigate the case. Now, in this movie, which again, a real stellar movie, really, really fascinating movie, with a great deal of actors, from Sidney Poitier to Rod Steiger to Lee Grant, and so many others. But in this movie, it's really, really fabulous, because this is one of the first times in a movie, all right, where an African-American man, who's the police detective, Virgil Tibbs, he slaps, this white suspect, who first slaps him, And again, it's fascinating to watch this movie. And again, you have to watch it from the viewpoint of this is 1967. And while investigating, and going to the home of this individual who he's investigating, all right, this man just out of nowhere doesn't like the questions and slaps Sidney Poitier, And then Sidney Poitier in return slaps him back really hard, all right? And again, this is as Detective Virgil Tibbs in the movie In the Heat of the Night. Now, again, that's controversial because, again, it's 1967. It's about a murder in Sparta, Mississippi. And can you imagine all of the rednecks and racists in the South, to see this African-American man slap a white man? So it was a really, really huge thing to see back then. But, for African-Americans, it just was a great show of the equalization of what Hollywood can do when they show movies in the way that they did in this particular one. All right. But anyway, great acting. The murder is solved. And then it shows that Sparta police chief that, wow, African-American people aren't just, individuals with no brains or no intelligence and yes sir, no sir, that kind of thing. All right. Another one of my favorites was in 1958. It was called The Defiant Ones. All right. The Defiant Ones. All right. The Defiant Ones was a movie about two criminals. All right. And both of them were chained to each other. All right. They were convicts. All right. And again, this shows the racial animosity between them. They hate each other, but they need to help each other to succeed in their intent of going north to jump in a train and reach freedom. All right. Again, this movie shows Sidney Poitier. It shows Tony Curtis. And for a movie back in 1958, it had a pretty huge budget of $778,000. That was a lot of money for way back then. All right. But again, it starred Sidney Poitier as Noah Cullen and Tony Curtis as John Joker Jackson. All right. Really, really well acted movie. Claude Akins was in it. Lon Chaney was in it. Theodore Bickle as the sheriff was in it. So again, fascinating movie. And if you decide that you want to go back and look at Sidney Poitier movies, I definitely recommend The Defiant Ones. All right. The unfortunate thing is I can't talk about all of Sidney Poitier's great movies, but I'll just rattle off a few of my favorite. A Raisin in the Sun from 1961. Another really, really great movie that had Ruby Dee in there. Okay. And A Raisin in the Sun was first a play. All right. And then was made into a movie. And some of the stars of that movie that we would know, well, I mentioned Ruby Dee, and then the great Louis Gossett Jr. All right, he was really, really younger, but he also starred in this movie. So just a good movie about Walter Lee Younger, who is Sidney Poitier, and he's a young man struggling with his station in life. Okay, he's sharing a tiny apartment with his wife, his son, his sister, and the mother, and he seems like an imprisoned man until his family gets an unexpected financial windfall. Okay, and I'm not going to give away too much of the movie, but really, really great movie. Unfortunately, was ignored at the Oscars. You know, Sidney Poitier, Claudia McNeil, they were nominated for Tonys. But another really great movie if you're going to watch Sidney Poitier movies to watch. Another one of my all-time favorite movies was A Patch of Blue. And I think I watched this by accident, but this was 1965. And I happened upon it and saw Sidney Poitier and said, oh my gosh, I have got to watch this movie. It is about a blind, uneducated white girl who is befriended by a black man who becomes determined to help her escape her impoverished and abusive home life by introducing her to the outside world. Okay, this movie starred Elizabeth Hartman as the blind woman, but then also starred Shelley Winters, okay, as her mother. And really, really great movie. And you get to see how this blind young woman was abused, you know, in her home. Really, really, really striking movie. Again, this is 1965. Again, racial animosity in the country is heightened. But yet again, Sidney Poitier puts himself in the position, okay, to show the world, especially the United States, that, you know, our race really, truly does not, should not matter. All right. Other great ones, there's The Lilies of the Field, you know, which was a fabulous movie. All right. In this movie, Sidney Poitier is a traveling construction worker. He's heading out west. He stops at a remote farm in the desert to get water when his car overheats. And the farm is being worked by a group of East European Catholic nuns headed by the strict Mother Maria. And she believes that he is sent by God to build a much needed church in the desert. All right. Really, really great movie. Great acting in this movie. This, again, had a box office budget of $240,000, which, again, you know, relatively was a lot of money for that time. Okay. But again, great movie. I recommend that you see Lilies of the Field starring Sidney Poitier. Okay, so I'm gonna move into some of the movies that really I liked. Just a great deal. All right. And I'm gonna go to the three that brought a great deal of entertainment before I get to my final one. That's probably my most favorite Sidney Poitier movie. All right. But let's talk about the movies that he was in with Bill Cosby. All right. So let's get into those. We've got Uptown Saturday Night. Okay. Now, if you want to see a great movie, a fun movie, and see Sidney Poitier playing, the straight man to Bill Cosby's funny man, you have got to see Uptown Saturday Night. Okay. And talk about a great deal of stars in this movie. Sidney Poitier, of course, his best friend Harry Belafonte is in the movie. Bill Cosby is in the movie. Flip Wilson, Richard Pryor, Paula Kelly, Roscoe Lee Brown, Calvin Lockhart. I don't know if I mentioned Flip Wilson. I mean, this movie just has a ton of great African-American actors, and it is funny as heck. They go to Steve Jackson, who is Sidney Poitier in the movie. He gets a winning lottery ticket, but he doesn't find out that he has the winning lottery ticket until after he gets robbed in a nightclub. Okay, and so now they come up with all kinds of ways to recover the winning lottery ticket. Fascinating movie. Bill Cosby is great. Harry Belafonte is phenomenal as a gangster. You have got to watch Uptown Saturday Night. Okay. Then next for me, okay, so again, I'm talking about my all-time favorite movies with Sidney Poitier, would have to be, as I go back through these, I'm just like fascinated about, just how great an actor he was, okay, and just how phenomenal he was, and just how he was able to, showcase himself in just some of the best ways. All right. So my next favorite movie would be, I just have so many. Let's Do It Again is going to be it. All right. Let's Do It Again is my next best favorite movie with Sidney Poitier. All right. Let's Do It Again. Again is one of those movies that has a great deal of actors that you would know. It stars one of my all-time favorite actors, the great John Amos, okay, who starred as what was his name in Good Times? He was the father in James Evans. Yes, he starred as James Evans in Good Times. But in Let's Do It Again. Again, we have Sidney Poitier teamed with Bill Cosby. Again, we have Calvin Lockhart. We've got Ozzie Davis. We've got the great Jimmy Walker. We've got Denise Nicholas. We've got Lee Chamberlain. So many fabulous actors in this movie. Again, you've got this comedic team, and Sidney Poitier usually doesn't do comedy, okay? Bill Cosby is the comedian, all right? But you've got Sidney Poitier, really doing a great job keeping up with Bill Cosby in this movie. Again, if you're going to have a movie night, you have got to see, all right? Let's Do It Again, all right? And then we've got a piece of the action, all right? A piece of the action teams Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier again. But this time, they add another great African-American star in James Earl Jones, all right? Denise Nicholas is back in this one again. Janet Dubois, who also starred in Good Times. Cheryl Lee Ralph, who's still around today. Ernest Thomas, you may remember him from What's Happening. Just a lot of great actors and actresses in this movie. Tracy Reed was phenomenal in this movie. Hope Clark. All right. And again, this movie is about a retired Chicago cop who is James Earl Jones, who blackmails two rich thieves who happen to be Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier. Okay. And again, the twists and turns in this movie are phenomenal. You have got to watch these three. So I'm going to repeat them again to you. Uptown Saturday Night, okay? Let's Do It Again, and A Piece of the Action. The three great movies that teamed up Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby. All right, so Sidney Poitier also acted in another movie that I thought was really fascinating. And I remember it brings back so many great memories for me because I went with my grandmother to see it. This is a movie from 1972 called Buck and the Preacher. This one teamed up Sidney Poitier again with his best friend, Harry Belafonte. Ruby Dee was in this movie as well. And so was Cameron Mitchell and Lynn Hamilton and so many other great actors and actresses. This showcased a Western with Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte. Really, really great, well-acted movie. And again, this is after the Civil War, and so many slaves were headed out west for a better life. And you had Buck, who happened to be Sidney Poitier. He's a former slave and a Union Army sergeant. His job is to lead the wagons into the west to their homeland. All right. So another great movie. All right. So as I get ready to close here pretty soon, I just want to talk about my absolute favorite movie with Sidney Poitier. All right. And this movie showcased racial relationships at a level that had really not been shown before. All right. Lots and lots of great actors in this movie, and Sidney Poitier did go on to act in many other movies after this, some a little bit more recent, and you can go on IMDb to look at those, but I really just want to talk about the ones that were just my absolute favorite, just so much great acting. So the name of that movie is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. All right. This movie won 2 Oscars. Gosh, it was just phenomenal. You had Katharine Hepburn that starred in this movie. She won Best Actress. You had Stanley Kramer, who won for Best Picture. Spencer Tracy won an Oscar because he died just after the movie came out. But he won Best Actor, Spencer Tracy in a leading role. You had Cecil Calloway and Bea Richards, both African-American actors and actresses that won Best Actor or Best Actress in a supporting role. You had Stanley Kramer to win again for Best Director, and so on and so on. Just so many awards. Sidney Poitier, Spencer Tracy also won a BAFTA award. The funny thing about this movie is that Sidney Poitier didn't really win any awards in this for this movie. However, he also was one of the great actors in this movie. But that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, the movie just really, really brought racial attitudes, and especially towards interracial dating and interracial marriage right up front. This movie came out in 1967. The Loving decision, Loving versus Virginia, that granted, interracial marriage throughout the United States by the United States Supreme Court, had come out just prior to this. And again, it's a couple's attitudes are challenged when their daughter introduces them to her African-American fiance. All right. Katharine Hepburn is married to the late, great Spencer Tracy. And again, an absolute fabulous movie. And, Cecil Calloway, he also won Best Supporting, but he was fabulous in this movie as Monsignor Ryan. He was a priest, Isabel Sanford was in this movie. She was fabulous, okay? And just so many other really, really great actors and actresses. This is my number 1 favorite movie from Sidney Poitier. And as I get ready to close, I just want to remind you again to think about Sidney Poitier and his roles in movies, and just to reflect back on his life. All right. Just a fabulous actor, a fabulous man. He died a couple of days ago at the age of 94, and just brought so many entertainment into so many people's lives. All right. And so that's why I wanted to showcase and honor him with this podcast today. Again, my name is Jaden Miller. You know who I am. My podcast is Think About It with Jaden Miller. Please like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. I really do strive to drop new episodes every Sunday and Wednesday. I've got a busy life too, so sometimes I may miss a Sunday or I may miss a Wednesday. Don't hold it against me. I am coming back with a new episode right away. I'm on all your favorite podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Amazon, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and so many more. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this special episode dedicated to the late, great Sidney Poitier. You all have a great, fabulous rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to Think About It with Jaden Miller. Don't forget to like and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and like and follow on your favorite podcast platform.